It is about 8 o'clock, and welcome to the joint conference of North Carolina and South Carolina A4LE chapters. We're going to give a few minutes for folks to come in the virtual door before we make our introductions this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Things are pretty chilly here in Charlotte, but I think the rain has moved out. We've got had a little early morning shower, but should have beautiful weather today, hopefully. It's about 8:01 now. We'll probably give it to 8:03, maybe 8:02, 8:03, and then we'll kick things off and we'll introduce folks and give you guys a preview of what the day's program is going to be. We had good participation yesterday, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for good participation again today. The registrants were way up, and we had a lot of good viewers, a lot of good viewership yesterday. All right, it's about 8:02, so I think we've given a good bit of time for folks to come in the door here. So welcome. Again, this is the A4LE North Carolina, South Carolina joint virtual conference this fall. The idea behind this conference, we had a lot of good speakers that had been vetted and lined up for us to bring to you, the membership of A4LE and North Carolina and South Carolina in the spring. And everybody knows what happened to conferences this spring. So as we're looking forward to next spring and topics, we realized that we may be kind of needing to revisit new topics. And there's a lot of things out there in the world that are changing the way we look at things. So we felt like this would be a good opportunity to give the presentations that were proposed in the spring an opportunity to put forward to you all as a part of our membership. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to now thank the sponsors that made this possible. We have had wonderful support from our sponsors for our live conferences over the years, and we really appreciate your support in this virtual format. Sponsors for this conference are Blankenship Associates, Clark Nexum, Craig Golden Group, DLR Group, Duke Energy, ESA, Earl Swenson Associates, Little Diversified Consultants, Architectural Consultants, LS3P, MB Construction, McMillan Pasden Smith Architecture, Mosley Architects, National Ready Mix Concrete Association, Pinnacle Dryer, Raymond, Sherman Carter Barnhart Architects, SFL and A Architects, Smith Sennett Architects, and Timmons Group. As I was reading through those, I realized that I may not have introduced myself. My name is Hamilton Court. I'm with McMillan Pasden Smith Architects, and I am the chapter president for the North Carolina A4LE chapter. As we're thanking, I also want to thank Edie Francesconi. She is the A4LE employee that facilitates what we do as a chapter throughout the year. But Edie has done a lot of the legwork, making sure that this conference could happen and making sure that everything was aligned here. I spoke a little bit about the conference, the live conference that we had planned for last spring. I think both chapters are kind of punted that down to the following spring, and we have those online and ready to go, and we are and lined up, but we are obviously going to be in a wait and see pattern, trying to make sure that all the vaccines fall in line. So please keep up to date and keep checking back with us to be notified of changes that may happen throughout that process. But we have every intention of bringing more programming to you again next spring. Next, I want to introduce Paul Boney and Chuck Saylor. Paul Boney is the Southeast Regional President, and Chuck Saylor is our international board member. First, I guess I'll turn it over to Paul for some remarks.
Well, thank you, Hamilton. It's great to be with everyone this morning. I welcome you to the North Carolina A4LE conference. First, I'd like to thank you, Hamilton, for the year that you've had. It's been a difficult year, and you've done a great job this year. Thank you, Chuck. You'll hear from him a little bit, but Chuck and Hamilton both have put a tremendous amount of time into this organization for the year. I'd also like to thank, again, Edie and particularly Taylor Morris from our office, who has helped the region in the fall as we have moved through this year. Been a tough time. We can't do anything without the sponsors and without you, the members. And that's really our focus, and you, the members, are the focus of this organization and the backbone. And thank you for participating and being a member. We have a really strong region. Luckily, we are where this area is where everybody is moving to and wants to be. And that means a lot of kids to educate and a lot of school buildings to get built. So I'd just like to thank you for providing such a strong region, the membership, and we'll be doing some very interesting things as things open up, and even before that. So thank you all. I see my friend Nathan Mounty waiting to speak, and he is worth hearing and a great speaker and very knowledgeable. So Chuck, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. I'll have to join Paul in his comments to thank both Taylor and Edie for their work in helping us organize a lot of things within the chapter and the region throughout the Southeast. They've done a great job, and we really appreciate everything that they do. As Paul stated, our sponsors are valuable partners in our work. And as you know, our association is very unique in the fact that no other professional association that I'm aware of brings to the table the professionals from the design community, from education, and from service providers and contractors to build safe, secure, and technologically equal learning environments for our students. Those are our customers, the students. And without your participation through events like this and others within North Carolina and South Carolina, we wouldn't be able to accomplish the goals that we try to make sure that our children do have those environments to learn in. I want to take an opportunity also to thank Hamilton and the North Carolina board, as well as Scott and the South Carolina board for the work that they did to put this idea together. As Hamilton mentioned earlier, this was an organic conversation that came about because of all things COVID. And this is a prime example of what you can do when good people put their minds together and make a bad situation a lot better by delivering the deliverables virtually. And so I want to thank Hamilton, Nathan, and everyone else that's going to be participating today. I hope that you find this information valuable for you as a professional in this environment, and hope that you all have a great day and enjoy the holiday season. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chuck. So we'll kind of move on to some housekeeping items as we kind of set up the day for you. Hopefully you got oriented with the conference and the conference format yesterday. If you're just joining us today, basically the format you're able to, the format is in a Zoom environment, so it is not a continuous stream of information to you. There are live sessions this morning at 9:15 and at 10:30. The 9:15 presentation is from Raymond Engineering, and the 10:30 presentation is from Timmons Group. Those presentations are accessed through links. Either you can find that in, hopefully in an email that you received that outlines the program that has specific Zoom links, but those Zoom links can also be accessed from our webpage. Into the afternoon, the sessions are pre-recorded. And so as you move on into the afternoon, you can find the links to the pre-recorded sessions there on the A4LE website. So if you just Google A4LE in North Carolina, the Google does a good job of finding us and identifying where we are. All right, so so we're getting ready to turn it over to Nathan Monty to give us the North Carolina State of the State. Before he begins, I just wanted to kind of brag on North Carolina and DPI a little bit. The existence of our conference and what we do kind of originated from his organization. The North Carolina DPI started putting together a group of colleagues that discussed discussed school planning issues together, and also engaged the North Carolina legislature in topical issues that surrounded school construction. I know this because I just we just closed up an office, or moved our office, and I dug through some old archives and found some old folders that were full of lots of print paper, totally different from this virtual conference, that had schools of interest and multiple planning guides, legislative agendas, and pages and pages of attendee lists, which were kind of a neat little archive. I'm having a hard time tossing those to the side, so I've got them in a little box under my desk. But anyway, North Carolina, I've been to several national conferences and heard from colleagues around the country about how North Carolina had really been sort of the standard bearer in school planning and publications over the years. So I'm really proud of the work that we as a state have done, and Nathan's group at the Department of Public Instruction. But we really appreciate these State of the State addresses. They give us a lot of great information. And thank you, Nathan, again for putting this together for us. So I'll go ahead and pass it on to you, Nathan. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamilton. Good morning, everyone. I am hoping that this virtual environment holds up and that my signal doesn't cut in and out. It has been doing that this week. I'm Nathan Mounty. I'm an architect with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. We are the state agency that is involved in policy making and facilities and educational standards and programmatic requirements and all of the many attributes that affect the quality of education in North Carolina and educate the children of this state. I can't take credit for all that Hamilton just mentioned. There is a long history in the school planning section at DPI. Proud to be a part of that continuing legacy. And I'll talk a little bit about what we do in this presentation. So I'm going to share a screen now. Which is a short PowerPoint, short set of slides that I'll use as a guide and a reminder for what I want to mention. Again, my name is Nathan Mounty. This is the state of the state for North Carolina for 2020. Much of this was prepared earlier in the year when we thought that we would have our annual in-person conference, our state conference, and of course that didn't occur, as we all know. I'll not be focusing a lot on COVID-19 related topics this morning. I'll talk about facility construction, school needs, and related topics in the state of North Carolina. I think we're all familiar with many of the adjustments that have evolved this year in terms of K-12 education and the environments for teaching and the remote learning, in-person learning, and all the challenges that is presented. And those challenges continue. They will not be solved in the next semester. We hope that we will start to see some return to normal next fall. But again, that's still too far out and a little bit in the unknown. So everyone involved with education and facilities and schools in North Carolina and South Carolina and all across the country continue to innovate and apply everything they know about solving this challenge. So a couple of things I'll discuss here will be some updates from our section, school planning section, a little bit about construction costs in North Carolina, some population details for the state and for the schools in this state, capital funding for schools at the state level in North Carolina, and then just briefly touch on a couple of pieces of legislation that were proposed prior to this year. This year's been unique, so there wasn't much in the way of school capital funding legislation that was discussed in this past summer's legislative session in North Carolina. I'll introduce our team in the school planning section. I am an architect, and we have other architects and engineers in our group that are an extremely talented team. You will see here on the slide 7 people, and that's everyone. In the past, the times that Hamilton made reference to, this section was 3, almost 4 times that many personnel, and we do a lot in the field, inspections in schools and other direct outreach efforts and engagement that we just cannot do enough of this in this environment with this level of staffing. So most of what we do is in a consulting capacity, guidance capacity, but we do go do some facility visits occasionally when requested by school districts and even individual schools and superintendents. So these are the folks that we have on the team, and every one of these individuals has spent many years, in most cases decades, in private practice in engineering and architecture, and much of that effort focused on K-12 school facilities. So it is an expert team with deep experience, and we're here to assist in any way we can, both districts and their staff and their design consultants, contractors, and others they engage with. That's our mission. So some of the routine year in and year out activities of this group involve design and technical reviews of K-12 school projects, public school projects in North Carolina. We see these early in schematic and design development stages, and then we will see a second review, typically, sometimes a third cycle of review on bigger projects in the construction documents phase. Many of you in North Carolina will be familiar with that process. That's kind of our core mission, but we, over the years, have added many things to that role, and many of those have been added by our legislature and assigned to DPI, and the team we have ends up the best fit for that work. We publish facility design guidelines for the state. Many of those are approved and authorized by the State Board of Education. Others are found in policy and of the department. So it's an ongoing, evolving set of guidelines, and that's looking at a lot of change here after this year. So we're evaluating many of those components. We track and report bid results on public schools in North Carolina in our office, and we publish those periodically on our website. The capital funds that are provided by the state, we manage those, administer those funds, and are subject to audit for that work. That's a big piece of what we do these days. We're currently involved in our 5-year statewide capital facility needs survey, and that's where all 115 school districts in the state are surveyed for their existing needs in their facilities, their planned future expansions, and that's quantified and reported once every 5 years, according to the statute that requires that. That's underway and will conclude next spring with a report to the state board. We also manage capital projects in a direct way as an owner for residential schools in North Carolina. Those are the schools for the deaf in Wilson and Morganton, and the blind school in Raleigh. And we also have campus capital responsibility for the North Carolina Centers for the Advancement of Teaching. And that entity has 2 campuses in Ocracoke, North Carolina, and in the Western Campus, the main campus in Cullowhee, North Carolina. So those 5 campuses keep us busy. In addition, we will occasionally have some capital responsibilities in the DPI headquarters building in Raleigh. Some of the sort of COVID-related 2020 tasks that we have undertaken and accelerated have been a modernization of our website. Cybersecurity is a big issue these days, and it's necessitated many state agencies in North Carolina transitioning to a common platform, a more secure website platform. So we've completed that and continue to add pieces to what's included there. Our old website will not redirect you. It has been redirecting visitors most of this year, and that's no longer the case. So you might have to Google us. You might have to go to the DPI website generally and find us. Just search school planning and then save that link, and you'll be good. We've completed a transition to digital reviews. All of our design reviews prior to this year, just about all of them were still being conducted on paper submittals, full-size drawings and specs, and you know, we all like pen and paper, at least my generation does, and I think there's a lot of value still there. But we have been forced, and it was already a goal, it was kind of in planning in our group, to transition to design reviews via digital platforms, and we now receive only digital submittals, and that's kind of been what's kept us going as a group, working remotely this year And with all the uncertainty, we've been able to continue with our work in all these areas due to that transition. We are updating our facility guideline publications, as I mentioned, and looking at ways to advise legislature and the committees looking at K-12 capital funding going forward. We don't have any innovative ideas there, but we're advising and helping them with questions they have about what's being proposed legislatively. Again, the statewide facility needs survey is a 5-year effort, and in 2015, this is self-reported data. There was over $8 billion of needs. That's billion with a B in North Carolina that was reported by districts statewide to DPI, and that report is on our website. I don't have any slides with any detail from that today, but that is expected to, I would hesitate to say it will increase, but the last couple of surveys have been right around that 8 billion figure. And again, we're relying on self-reported data from each district. We do not have the staff to visit each facility and do any kind of uniform assessment. So we feel like it's more than the tip of the iceberg, but it's definitely kind of a report of what the greatest needs are. It may not capture every need, but it is an apples to apples indicator over time. So we see value there, and that report will be published next year. Our technical reviews, our design reviews in recent years have kind of broken down like this. So far this year, we have completed 189 project reviews, and we have 61 currently in review in the office. So the work has not slowed down for us. You can see that's approaching, depending on how many of those reviews are completed. That'll be a very busy year looking back over the last 5 or 6 years. It does vary, of course, because this just captures the calendar year in which those reviews were completed. So it's not it does not capture when they were submitted for the first time or any other data points like that. Continues to be a busy year. Nationally, school construction spending is flat in 19 over 18, just under $100 billion nationwide. So you can see the kind of relative size of the sector relative to the years following the recession. Years 08 and 09 were well above $100 billion nationwide. But we haven't reached that level. We may not. Those are big years in terms of construction volume for K-12 schools. But I just like to show this as kind of context for what's happening in North Carolina. In our state, again, this is data reported to us by firms and districts in North Carolina. Over time, we've been tracking this for a number of years, and we probably have to start dropping some of those early years off of this slide just for the graphics to hold up. But I wanted to look at this 15-year span just to kind of show folks where we are. It's a pretty tight grouping there as we move into these recent 3 or 4 years, and our data sets are improving. We've had a little difficulty in gathering that, even though it is public information. We've redoubled our efforts this year, and we're seeing figures well above the $250 a square foot cost, and that's as awarded. So it's not going anywhere but up, and we've used the baseline in our survey of $250 a square foot. There are some factors in there for other spaces, such as school kitchens and other spaces that are factored slightly higher than that. But we've had a few questions about that, but I feel like that's almost not high enough for the out years. If you're planning a project that might bid 4 years from now, it's anyone's prediction right now where that will be, but we feel like the data we have supports that. And in 2015, it was $195 a square foot that was used, and that's not too far from this graph, actually. So I feel like we're in the ballpark. It's certainly an estimate, a planning guide. It's not going to be the case for every project. Again, those are self-reported costs, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on that slide. The population in North Carolina is around 10.5 million right now, and the 2019 population grew at about 1%. It's been 1.1, 1.2 in recent years. So we added another 106, 110,000 folks during 2019. And that's another city, if you think about it that way. So that's a lot of in-migration. Our K-12 public schools educate well over 1.5 million students as of last count. And 121,000 of those are attending charter schools in North Carolina. Again, we have 115 districts in the state, and within those districts are 2,730 schools at present. 200 of those are charter schools, and 7 of those are laboratory. There's 6 laboratory schools and 1 regional school. Laboratory schools are cooperative arrangement with a university campus in sponsors, I suppose, and they are public schools for K-12, but they are partnered with universities in the state. And that's a recent development within the last 3 or 4 years that was created in legislation. Largest district is in Wake County, where the capital city, Raleigh, is located. Wake County Schools has over 162,000 students. And the smallest district is Hyde County on the Outer Banks in eastern North Carolina with 591 students. So it's a broad, diverse set of districts and student experience in North Carolina. These are all the counties in North Carolina, and the red is just a slight population loss. It shows up strongly on that map, but really it's just slight out-migration, as are those few orange counties. The yellow and all the green are counties that are experiencing population growth year over year, and that's not the entire state, but it's a significant portion. A good 2/3 or more are seeing annual growth in their population. A little bit about funding in the state. North Carolina does provide some capital funding for K-12 schools. Generally speaking, all K-12 funding is for capital projects is locally derived. Counties and cities can and do pass bond referenda and levy sales tax and attribute those things for their capital needs. The state currently funds capital projects simply from lottery proceeds. The lottery began in 2006, and at that time and to present day, there's an annual lottery fund that's distributed to districts, to counties, statewide on a per ADM basis. It's been for a number of years at $100 million per year, per fiscal year, distributed on a per ADM basis. That's about $67 a student. And so that does more for a larger district, obviously, than it does for a smaller district in a single year. But those monies are available for capital repairs and improvements. They can be used to service debt on construction projects for schools. So that gives some flexibility over time. The corporate tax fund still exists. Some districts, some counties still have balances there that are eligible to be used. They just have not been to date. In 2017, the legislature initiated a needs-based capital lottery fund And you can see the funding levels for that have varied over the first 4 years of that program. That's due to some legislative formulas that derive additional funds for the program from excess lottery revenues. So we know now that there is a baseline of 75 million per year in that program, and it can, as it has in a couple of years, exceeded that based on lottery revenues. And it's interesting that the lottery revenues this year during 2020 have actually increased. I should correct myself. It's the fiscal year 1920 that ended at the end of June. Those lottery revenues were up over the prior year. I can't say where they are right now, but that needs-based grant program is an application-based fund for new school buildings. It's not currently eligible for renovations. Additions are considered new buildings, and they are eligible. You cannot purchase land with that, and it's available to about 2/3 of the counties in the state, probably 80%. The tier 1 and tier 2 counties, according to the North Carolina Department of Commerce, that's an economic ranking category, and those counties are eligible, and the districts within them. They have a matching requirement that differs depending on their ranking within that tier system. So it's either a 1-to-1 match for tier 2 counties and a maximum grant of $10 million, or a 1-to-3 match with a maximum grant of $15 million. So that's a newer component to capital funding, and it's proven successful for many of those low wealth counties who don't build a lot of school facilities year in and year out. They've begun to plan and seek those grants, and it is showing really positive results and replacing some very old school facilities in North Carolina. I have 2019 here because that's really the last time that legislation dealing with capital construction in North Carolina was seriously considered, and a version of one of these bills was included in budget that was passed and vetoed and was not overridden, and therefore never became law. So we'll look again in 2021. We'll see what's proposed. But in 2019, and for those who aren't familiar, that's what's known as the long session in North Carolina. North Carolina's legislative and budget planning works in a biennial fashion. And so 2019 was a long session where the new budget is crafted, and proposals like this are often included in the budget documents. And then that cycle will repeat in 2021. And there's obviously a lot of uncertainty about where that will take us due to the COVID-19 year that we've had, and what that may have done to state revenues. So we'll all just have to stay tuned. But these were the proposals in the most recent legislative sessions. A K-12 school construction bond that might get coupled with some transportation bonds or some other construction bonds in the future. It was a standalone bond proposal at that time. And again, both of these would allot a specific number of resources to each district or each county in the state. That would go before voters. A bond would typically in North Carolina. There's also a state capital infrastructure fund that funds R&R projects for state-owned facilities. And there's a proposal to create a component within that fund that would address K-12 school construction in North Carolina, and pay into that fund through state revenues over time. A couple of $2 billion was the proposal in 2019. So that's just a glimpse at what might resurface next year or in years later relating to school construction capital funding in North Carolina. So that's it for my slides. I am available anytime. I assume that this will be published and available for reviewing by A4LE. And there's my contact information and our rather cumbersome web link at the bottom of that slide. So I welcome your questions, inquiries, and I'm happy to discuss school projects and trends in North Carolina with you at any time. And again, thanks to A4LE and all the work of Edie and Taylor Morris as well, and her work in assembling this. So that'll be it for me. I've been asked to remind you that the next session begins at 9:15. I believe that's Raymond Engineering, and there are links in the email that you have received for the joint conference. And again, I appreciate your time, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about school construction and the school planning section at DPI. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. That concludes our morning introduction and the state of the state. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I also wanted to quickly thank the Scott Carlin, the chapter president of South Carolina. I did not mention him earlier, and Jasmine Shaw for the work they did yesterday with the state of the state for South Carolina as well. So, thanks again, everybody. And next session again starts at 9:15. So please enjoy the conference. We're excited to bring it to you.